Welcome to Discurious Media. This is Zen Dog Training, a show dedicated to helping people train the dogs they love. I'm Jason Connell.
And I'm Gordon Fontaine.
Gordon, we are back, my friend, for another great episode. And I do love the title, but I'll let you share what it is.
The title today is The Owner's Manual for Your Dog.
I think this applies to any and everyone who has a dog, who's thinking about getting a dog. Gordon, this is big.
Well, everyone wishes they had some owner's manual for their dog, right? And here's ours. But what I'd like to say is, there is so many different competing ideas out here. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about the stuff that you can't dispute. This is just the basics. This is the stuff that works on every dog at every age, every breed. Just doesn't matter. This is the scientifically approved methods for training a dog and put it into an owner's manual.
Man, this is great. I cannot wait to unpack this. I'm surprised we can get this into one episode. This feels like it could be its own season. It's a lot. Well, this is exciting. And I like what you said. It's all encompassing for all breeds, because some people are like, well, I have a Jack Russell, like you do, or I have a Labrador and he does this. And so I like that it's like, hey, this is just, big picture, applies to all canines, all creatures, and this is what you need.
That's right. That's right. So these principles, they start with the basic, which is dogs learn based on what they get away with. So back in the day, I trained with April Frost. She was in Vermont, and she used to say, dogs do what works. They learn what works. They just do what works for them.
Yeah.
And the more you think about your dog as an opportunist who's always testing the rules with every person in the family, the faster you're going to train them.
Isn't that funny? And maybe some breeds would push it a little bit more, but we're not going to get into that.
That's right. That's right. Some breeds are more persistent and some breeds are more likely to just, not push the boundaries and stuff. But that's still, at the end of the day, if you let them get away with something unwanted, for example, like, when people use a pee pad with the house, every time they pee inside the house, you're confusing them to the rules if you want them to go to the bathroom outside.
Absolutely.
So for house training, we talked about this before. You never encourage them to go inside the house if your goal is to make them go outside, because it's confusing to encourage them to do one thing when you want them to do another.
And also, Gordon, I know one thing we always talk about is how counterintuitive Zen Dog training can be. And you have to kind of embrace that, because it's not the usual get upset with your dog, manhandle your dog. That's foreign thinking.
That's right. That's right. Scolding your dog, yelling at him, a lot of talking, lecturing, conversations. People lecture their dogs, and it just doesn't do anything. It's just any attention can be just to your dog is positive. Hey, he's talking with me. Great. But I do want to mention that when it comes to the owner's manual, what do? You start by ensuring that you have control of your dog and control of the environment. And that way you set boundaries and you can teach the lesson.
That's fantastic and well said. Yes.
And so that's what we called it the secret. We called it the secret in other episodes. But that's where our training is so effective, is because when I'm in the house, I'm not talking about the dog. I'm talking about you.
Right.
I'm talking about you. I'm like, oh, so are you going to be the one who remembers those treats? And then you can socialize them if they're scared, or you can reward them when they're good? Or are you going to not have those treats, and every time they eat a bunny poop or pick up a piece of trash, they won. They got away with it. They learned that eating something off the ground is better than listening to you.
Do you see, Gordon, some clients that, as you're telling them, it's kind of like, it's kind of washing over them, or they're like, yeah, okay, the treat, sure. It didn't really sink in. And then later it did. And they said, oh, you're right. I don't know why I was dismissing this.
That is exactly why we do a 2-visit minimum. Because the first visit, I give them 2 hours, we cover everything. I come back to the house a second time and I open the door, and their goal is to not have the dog jump. And sure enough, they don't have the indoor leash on. And then I come in the door and the dog jumps on me 3 or 4 times in a row, and they're going down, 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 which I don't teach. I don't teach that. I teach, put the indoor leash on before you open the door, have a bag of treats, teach your guests to ignore them if they're jumping, and you can physically prevent them from jumping by stepping on the leash, create a teachable moment, and reward them when they're sitting. You can do all that stuff, but it requires that leash on. If the dog jumps on your visitor 4 or 5 times when the visitor comes in, they physically learn to jump.
Yes. So you see it usually gets corrected at least by the second visit. Like, what Gordon said is exactly what we need to be doing.
Yeah, or they don't have those treats. Like in a puppy class, I think I've talked about this. We talk about the open bar technique.
Yes.
Where you give them a handful of treats when they get scared. So in my second week of puppy class, I've explained it in the first week. I tell everyone how to do it. I disappear in the closet. I put my hoodie on. I break out a walker. I have a leftover walker.
Who's
crutches,
this strange guy?
And I come in the classroom like shuffling the walker. I even carry a Swiffer like to clean the floor. And sure enough, about 2 people out of a 6-dog class, they don't give the dog the treats. And I'm like, give him a treat, give him a treat, give him a handful of treats. There's a weird guy who just came out of the woodwork with a hoodie on and a walker. Your dog's looking scared. And they don't physically do the treat for exposure thing that we taught, because it's kind of like dancing. You really have to put one foot in front of the other. You gotta do it.
Yeah. All of this is in your owner's manual.
That's right. The owner's manual
Your dog.
is, I'm joking about the owner's manual in some ways, because
Yes.
a lot of this content we have on our website, a lot of this is about, finding a trainer who's going to teach you this stuff. But I do want to highlight some of the things that you, a listener, can remember and use. And the biggest thing there would be bring treats on every walk.
Yeah. It's a huge one. And I have done both ways. I'm telling you, having the treats makes for a better walk.
Yeah. And it gives you the opportunity to do positive reinforcement. Like I said, you're competing against the rabbit poop that might taste good to your dog, or a gross thing on the walk. And if you don't have a positive thing to counter it, then, it doesn't help.
Yeah, you're pulling, you're trying to get your dog to follow you. You've lost their attention along that journey.
You might have to use a negative approach, which I'd rather use a positive approach.
What else do we have in the owner's manual?
I think the other big thing is that as a human, you need to speak and act in ways that help your dog understand you. And what that means is clear signals, clear communication, clear rules and boundaries, and consistency in action. So if one person in the family is allowing the dog to jump up and give hugs, then you'll never get that don't jump on people, because one person's undermining the training because the dog is jumping up on that said person, and they're not learning that via consistency.
I really like the way you put that. And it's that consistent behavior. And it is true. If you're a single person raising a dog, you're calling all the shots. But if you have a family environment or a couple, you need to be on the same page. The dog doesn't really know, like, well, he likes this and she tells me to do this or whatever. You need that consistency. And I'm sure you get that in your training too. You're working with couples working together to have the common message.
Yeah, that's why the focus is like, if there's an individual in the house who's not capable of following through, or is a visitor or whatever, we incorporate the training in a way that includes them or excludes them. So, okay, well, let's make sure that when that visitor comes over, you're always stepping the leash, and they can't encourage your puppy to jump on them.
Yeah, include or exclude. That's smart.
Right. And make sure that we account for them.
Yeah.
And their consistency. And so, we talked about the tangibles here. So we talked about treats on walks. We've talked about in previous episodes, use treats as rewards and not bribes. How do we do that? We use a yes marker. And so the yes marker is just like the clicker. We use positive reinforcement markers like the yes sound or a clicker. We also use negative reinforcement markers, where we say, oh, hey, get out of there, or even like, oh, when we take attention away. But the way dogs learn is if they hear that sound, yes, good girl, and the treat comes a couple seconds later, it builds up that anticipatory response, just like Pavlov and the bell, where a dog knows when they hear, yes, good pup, they know they did something well, and you won't need treats in the future as much.
That's true. I love getting to that stage, honestly, because then you have that bond, that connection, and a good boy means everything to them. Your dogs want to be happy.
But if you say, good dog, good dog, good dog, good dog, and there's never a treat, your words lose their power.
Right.
So it's about, interacting with them that builds up rules and teaches them what's happening. And so using the treats in a way that's not bribe-like is a big piece of this.
This is great. I love it. And every new dog owner, or if you're a seasoned dog owner, it's good to always go back and revisit your owner's manual, I would say. Anything else in here that we want to extract?
Well, sure. I would say, find a great dog trainer. Find a great positive reinforcement dog trainer that's going to really focus on the positivity.
Right.
The trainers like myself, we use positive reinforcement. We use treats and encouragement. We also have gentle methods to stop, interrupt, and refocus dogs.
And when you're looking for a dog trainer, and I know we've unpacked that topic itself on other episodes, do they just come out on their website and say that positive training? Is that the word that they're embracing?
It's hard to say, because some people do, positive training, and they mean positive corrections, like positive punishment.
Okay.
And so you really just have to ask them a little bit, interview them a bit, and say, hey, what would you do if my dog got a piece of something gross off the ground? A woman I talked with a week ago, she said she talked to trainer. They came to the house even, and they were doing leash jerks. So they said, "No, take the harness off, put the leash directly on the dog's neck, and just jerk the leash every time they did something bad." And
you
she
just don't
knew it was
know.
wrong. She knew
Right.
it was wrong. She didn't go back to them and this lady wasn't even a certified trainer. She was just a dog walker who does training on the side, but she's just doing this old school method. And sure, if you jerk the leash every time they do something negative, I'm sure that they'll get it, but it's not positive. It's definitely not Zen.
No, not at all. Anything else, Gordon?
Well, sure. It's like you said, this could be a whole season worth of topics.
Definitely.
But I think the big thing to keep in mind is to think positive, right?
Yeah.
Rewards, praise, treats for listening.
Yeah.
And then gentle interrupt techniques that aren't emotional, they're not angry, they're not scary or fearful, but they're physical, and they let your dog know to stop. And having that yin and yang, where sometimes you're going, "What a good girl," and the other time you're going, "Get out of there." And your dog starts to learn to have both an understanding of what to do, but also what you want them to stop doing, and doing that in language they understand. And then that's really at the crux of what we're teaching.
Yeah. No, it's great. At what point, or do you see a stage in dogs, if you bring a puppy into a home and you're taking the Zen Dog path, there's got to be a point, a year or two in, or you've got this like being just dialed in. You guys are succinct, and the whole family and the dog get along great, and these behaviors don't even come into play. Do you see that a lot?
I do. And I have to say, it's not a year. That's what's so frustrating, is that if I meet with someone at an early stage in the first couple of days of the relationship, some of this stuff just none of the bad behaviors just never happen.
Never happen.
Because the owner's always ahead. They're always knowing what to do. And yes, there's time and effort you have to put into training. And we talk about like 5 to 10 minutes of active training 3 times a day. We talk about walking. Every walk is a training moment. Every break outside is a training moment. With a young puppy, taking him out to pee, to use the bathroom outside is a time to socialize. And so there's a lot of combination stuff that's going on here, but my clients will see results in days or weeks. But it's crazy to see that somebody will fumble with this. They'll watch videos or this and that, and they'll dabble with other approaches, but they won't see the results quickly if they don't have this cohesive approach of positivity, knowing how to reward, knowing how to socialize, knowing how to gently stop. And once you have those things together, that's your owner's manual.
Absolutely. And I can tell, just you sharing again today, you really do love getting to puppies early. People who have young dogs, because you can set the stage up. Yes, you could work with an older dog, sure, but it's so much easier to get it right the first time.
Agreed. I mean, by the time a dog is 8 or 10 months, and if they haven't had consistent training, they have all these bad habits you have to undo before you start training. But like CC, this puppy I saw yesterday that was so young and fresh, and the owners are open-minded to stuff, already been in the house 2 weeks. It still felt like late. They were saying, "I wish you had been here day one." But I feel like we got so much done, and they're going to avoid so many of these pitfalls.
Absolutely. Not to say it's ever too late, because some people get dogs,
Never
an
too
adult
late.
dog. They adopt a dog. So there's a lot you can do. It's just going to be, there's some work to be done.
I always like to say the beginning of the relationship is the best time to start. So if you adopt an older dog, I'd like to be in there the first week or two.
Boom.
And the puppy, the same thing. The longer you kind of fumble and the dog creates their own learning habits and patterns, the harder it's going to be to change them.
Yeah, that's well said. I like that. But whenever you get the dog, whatever that is in their lifespan, whenever you get the dog, you want to, jump on it very quickly. That's good. Well, this is fantastic, Gordon. Anything else? I mean, the manual, I'm looking through the manual now. There's a lot in here. Anything else that we should talk about?
No, this is a fantastic episode. I'm sure there's other stuff to talk about, but we'll wrap it up here.
Well, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. Check out the Zen Dog Training Podcast, because, Gordon, there's new stuff on there that I don't even know about.
I'm glad you brought that up, because now that we have almost 50 podcasts out there, I feel like it's going to be hard for clients to know where to go, what to find. So I put together a curated list of podcast episodes.
Wow.
Right. I put one together for new puppy owners. If you just go in our articles on the website, you can find it. So you can click on each one as it relates to your puppy, for example.
That's a great idea. It's Gordon's playlist. I love this. And not that we don't want you to listen to all of them, because we do. But yeah, if you're just coming in fresh and you just want all the puppy stuff, you've shortened that list for them. That's brilliant. I didn't know that was on there, Gordon. I'm going to go check that out.
Yeah. The next thing I think I'm going to do is Gordon's favorite episodes, because there's some of them have been really, really great, and some I really connected with, and I'll put that as a future one too.
I'll be tuning into that for sure. Well, also go check out Just Curious Media for all the other shows we do. Gordon, until next time, my friend, wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you, Jason. I had a blast.